Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. I'm Kevin Coop.
And I'm Tom Furphy.
So, Tom, there was an article that I thought was really interesting on a blog called Marketplace Pulse. And what it was talking about was the fact that Amazon seems to be less customer centric and more ad centric on its pages. And let me just read a passage from it. It says that over the past year, sponsored products related to this item, 4 stars and above, and brands related to this category on Amazon, all of which are advertising sections, have all but replaced the more organic, quote, customers who bought this item also bought, and customers who viewed this item also viewed suggestions. That the last remaining recommendation functionality is frequently bought together. Everything else on the product page, including additional display advertising, is an ad. And what this article, this blog posting is suggesting is that, listen, I guess doing what a lot of retailers do and, looking for greater profitability, looking for stronger margins, Amazon is becoming a little bit less customer centric and more ad centric in a way that at least this guy suggests could come back and bite them in the rear end. First of all, is he right?
I think he has a very valid point. Yeah, he is right that there's definitely more sponsored product placements on Amazon today than there has been in the past. And it's no secret that Amazon is building a pretty massive ad business, right? I believe the latest numbers, but they've got to be probably on track currently for probably a $20 billion business inside Amazon, which goes a long way to funding profitability, goes a long way to enabling you to keep your prices down, can certainly offset the cost of a direct to consumer fulfillment network and all that good stuff, right? So yeah, I think it's clearly a big business inside Amazon. I think he's right that the customers who bought also bought, or customers who viewed bought, those pieces of functionality which are really important and quite high converting. Those have definitely moved down the page. They do still exist, but you got to go find them. Where it used to be kind of right there, at or just below what they call the fold, the bottom of the screen. Yeah, now it's almost like customers who bought or viewed, also bought, and the manufacturer paid for it. Like there's like another element to it as well. But I will say, and we work with a lot of Amazon advertisers in our IdeoClick, our Amazon agency business. We work with a few hundred manufacturers that do lots of advertising. Like I think we're still a top 5 advertiser on Amazon on behalf of our clients. So we do millions of dollars a week in advertising. And it's getting more competitive though. So to win those bids, so when you do see the sponsored product placements, around when you're searching on something, it is a combination of matching that product to the customer need with knowing that historically it has converted well. So when we put this in front of customers, they buy it. Oh, and the reviews are strong. So, that does do the customer service to put it there. But yes, the brand has certainly enhanced to pay for that. But you'll have to pay a lot more if the product customer match is not great. It becomes really expensive to pay for that ad. So the platform does kind of solve for the right ad in front of the right customer at the right time. It's really just a question of are there too many of them? Yeah. And ultimately, are we not putting the right products in front of the customers?
And I have to say, as a consumer or as a civilian, if you will, I hadn't noticed this, and I'm on Amazon a lot, and I had not really. Now, as soon as I read the piece, I said, "Oh, that's interesting." I went back and looked and said, "Oh," and I realized that the point he was making, at least in terms of placement, seemed valid.
Yeah.
At no point did I ever feel like they were trying to sell me stuff I wasn't interested in. It was still. It seemed within the parameters of, we're not trying to sell you stuff, we're trying to just make it easier for you to buy stuff.
Sure.
But I thought, but it didn't really bother me as a consumer. I also think it's interesting because one of the other points the blog makes is that, Amazon's hardly alone in this. I mean, Walmart has said, hey, listen, our goal is to be a top 10 advertising agency in this country. just by selling space on our various
On our own
platforms,
properties.
right?
Wow. Yeah.
That's not even doing anything else.
Yeah.
eBay is doing is being more aggressive about selling things. Um, Although it is interesting because Google has just made the announcement, and I'm not smart enough to be able to read between the lines, and I think there's probably a lot of small print in between the lines,
Right.
that they're not going to be selling advertising based um, on tracking of the consumer. Uh,
Right.
I'm sure there are a bunch of caveats in there in terms of what they actually will do, so they'll have value. But it does seem like Google's going in a different direction than the companies that are that have a broader retail presence.
Sure. Well, yeah, from the Google perspective, I mean, clearly they're under a ton of regulatory scrutiny now. Um, they're also losing share in product search, right? They've been losing share for quite some time to Amazon in product search, where Amazon alone is over 50% of product search that happens. If you start adding up now the product search that happens on Walmart and Albertsons, Safeway and Kroger and CVS and Walgreens and Target and all the big retailers, that's going to be taking even more and more of the product search traffic off of Google. So I know Google is, I'm sure, thinking of other ways to monetize that product search traffic that they have, though, and they are working on expanding their set of services where they work with, retailers, to help be an agent, to those retailers, to bring customers to those retailers. So I'm sure that they're working on other elements of the revenue model there, that they're not just giving up totally on making money off their customers in that regard. Shifted over to the many other retailers getting into this ad business now, right? If you think about the shift that's happened, really over the last 5 years, but of course exacerbated over the last year, right? With the volumes of interactions that have customers would uh, uh, customers would learn about products through mass media. Customers would learn about products at the store shelf. Maybe in newspaper, which of course is a form of mass media. Today that's shifting, right? So a lot more is happening online. I'm searching for products. I'm on these e-commerce websites. If I'm buying from the store, maybe I'm buying e-commerce, I'm picking up and I'm going in and, not spending as much time in front of the shelf. So, these retailers do need to evolve their ad models, right? Their ad models used to be co-op advertising on media. Their ad models used to be, shelf presence, end caps, in-store media, those kinds of things, right? So it's natural that a lot of the dollars are shifting to search and these website interactions. So they do need to all be playing there. Everybody is looking to build big ad businesses here. I think you had the gentleman from Citrus Ads on one of your broadcasts relatively recently, and they're building a big business helping retailers do that. So it's natural that they're making the shift. I think that it's going to be really important that they do it well. If you become a site that's obnoxious with your ads, where you're not helping customers buy things, you're not helping them solve their needs, it's not going to. I don't think it's going to bode well for you long term.
It's interesting because I mean clearly what Google was doing in terms of its announcement was dealing with the idea there are new regulators, there's a new administration in town. There's been a lot of talk about breaking up the big companies like Google, and so they're clearly trying to stave that off by getting ahead of the wave. Is it crazy to think that Amazon it might be built trying to get more revenue out of the retail side of its business, with the knowledge that it's at least possible that Amazon could get broken up and you'll have its retail business separated from its AWS business, and therefore it needs to find ways to make the retail business more self-sustaining? Am I
I
reading
don't think that that's a motivator. I think that they definitely want to make retail more self-sustaining over time. So even as Amazon's been losing money at retail, and by the way, they don't lose money overall at retail. They lose money in certain parts of retail on certain items at certain times. But overall, the retail business is not unprofitable. It's not oozing with profits, but it's not unprofitable. retail is a significant element to Prime. They're really at their core in their consumer business, right? It's all about Prime. It's about is getting as much value in Prime as you can, and having those various programs in Prime, be it on the media side, be it on the logistics side, be it on the pricing, whatever, having that all, provide a better value. So really that's what it's about. They're going to, I mean, they want to monetize any capability that they have to the extent that they can. And it just, in an e-commerce business, this is a new interface between shoppers and products. It makes sense to monetize it. And in a, you know, with given just the logistics cost of e-commerce, you have to find ways to offset that cost, because you can't ultimately push it all onto the consumer, or you can't ultimately sustain big losses long term. And brands are willing to pay some toward it, but they have to get value in return for that. So you got to strike the right balance. So I don't think this is going to enable retail to be better standalone, although I think it is yielding that. But I'm just not sure that is the kind of core intention.
So in so many ways, I mean, Amazon is not doing anything that traditional retailers haven't tried to do in terms of monetizing the space, right?
Absolutely. You just have different assets.
Right.
Yeah.
And different assets, that they're much more effective at exploiting in terms of generating dollars, right?
Well, absolutely, because of the and just your ability to monitor and measure real time, right? And test, and and when you see those winning formulas, to be able to invest in those quickly. It is a lot easier to do in a digital environment than a traditional retail environment.
So it seems to me that a retailer either reading that blog or listening to this conversation might reasonably say, how great is this? Amazon is maybe is losing a little bit of its customer-centric focus. Tom and Kevin have been talking about that being Amazon,
Right.
Not only us, obviously, but we've been talking about being that being their core value for, forever and a day. Isn't that great? They're going to end up coming back to the pack, which always seems to be the illusion that so many of these folks have. But it seems but the question is this a moment, and it could be a brief moment, where retailers actually do have the opportunity, if they can achieve a certain level of customer centricity, to actually become more competitive?
Well, so to unpack that a little bit, I do think that Amazon does run the risk of being less customer centric if they lean too heavily into ads and sponsored placements that detract from the experience, that pull customers away from products that would best serve their needs. So they need to be careful in how they do that. And I think they're being careful, but they absolutely do run that risk. And they're not infallible. They will make mistakes. They will go too far. They will alienate some customers along the way as they get it right. So now I would say at all times over time, in the past and in the future, Amazon will always be that way, though. They'll always, while being customer centric and trying to solve needs for customers, and then ultimately trying to maximize the profit equation, to again in turn be able to provide better value to customers. I mean, we've all seen the Amazon virtuous cycle, right? They're always going to be vulnerable potentially to better competitors. That has been that way, though, since they started the company. So is there a unique opportunity now for retailers to be competitive against them? Amazon says today is day one. Well, for everyone else, today is day one also, right? So it's as good of opportunity today as you're ever going to have.
Your A game.
You be on your A game. Don't wait for them to screw up.
Right.
Because, no matter how you cut it, Amazon is still in a minority share of retail, right? They have, they have half of all online retail, but that pie is going to be getting so big. So as a retailer, come in, get your piece of that. But online versus offline, it doesn't matter. You're just serving your customer in all the ways they want to be served. You still, retailer, have a pretty good share to defend. Amazon's been whittling away at that. Step up now. You've got an opportunity. Find, determine what it is that how are you going to differentiate? What are the things you can be unique, you can uniquely serve your customers at? And yes, I mean, you want to have some digital elements to that and some, serving the newer customer and customers newer ways to shop. You absolutely have to nail that. But, it's not like, oh, there's, Amazon's stumbling now. I have a chance to strike. No, you're not striking Amazon. You're serving your customers, and just act on that now. And you should act on that with incredible urgency, though, because there is a massive land grab happening now. And whether you see it or not, it's happening. So, you got to fight like heck to keep those customers, and then fight like heck to grow your volume with them.
Well, the good news is it always gives us something to talk about.
Yes.
Well, that's it for this edition of the Innovation Conversation. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Kevin. Have a good one.